Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the L1 show. Today's June 28th, 2023. And Wendell has changed out cups to give us the illusion that it's actually a different day while we're recording this.
It's actually just even more caffeine as he twitches his leg compulsively.
That first sip feeling.
My tea is very weak caffeine. There's very little
Oh, is that
caffeine in
tea?
my tea, but this is coffee. This is much more caffeine. So I'm gonna feel it here in a minute.
Woo!
Well, you know who could use a little pick-me-up? San Francisco.
Oh boy, they sure can.
They're having some problems, but they do have a plan.
Plan to save downtown San Francisco from doom loop approved by lawmakers. It's amazing to me that they call it that.
Yeah.
But they've got a picture of the Nordstrom building here. Nordstrom is just out. They're just like, we're out. We're done. And it's because the videos posted by this are just absolutely insane. And
So they have record vacancy.
40% now. This article says 30%. It's actually closer to 40.
So what they're going to do is they're going to cut all the red tape in terms of converting all of these buildings into housing. I don't know what that's going to do. And they're also trying to lower the bar in terms of bringing new businesses in, just in case you're an insane person and you want to run a business in a war zone.
There's another version of this article I read that said that they had done something to make it to where you can build more tiny homes without as much regulation, but they have to be temporary. And they're also okay with like building RV parks. That wasn't in San Francisco proper, but apparently that's in suburbs or something. I don't know anything about that. Maybe that's, engagement challenge. But yeah, nobody wants to live there with the blight, which causes the blight to grow. And then businesses don't want to go there because there's nobody with money there, and the cycle continues.
Isn't there also probably an element of like no one can afford to live there, even with the prices going down?
Well, I think that's going to correct itself eventually.
Yeah.
When they're building all the new housing, maybe that's supposed to
Balance it out.
I don't think it'll work very well. Even if it does, it's probably going to take a long time.
I mean, some of the buildings there are incredible. Like if you could, buy one of the buildings and armor it to survive this somehow and then come back in 10 or 15 years, you would make a mint, which I think a lot of people are planning to do.
But then you have 15 years of opportunity costs down the drain.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and for the people who actually live in San Francisco, that means that's places they can't live in.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
it just causes more problems.
You're thinking like BlackRock.
Yeah, well, that's why they're buying these places like crazy, you see. And so it's
And then they'll just rent them out for a higher price because people can't move because
Exactly.
they can't
But
afford to.
a little bit of a fly in the ointment there.
But they can't afford the rent, so they'll live on the streets and then they'll ruin the building. That's a vicious circle. I don't know how you fix it. I don't think that's the way, though.
I would like for them not to ruin the buildings because those buildings are San Francisco is very unique in that of all the other cities that I've traveled to. There's so many nice old buildings.
Well, one of the reasons that it might be dying isn't just because of their rampant social issues, but also because the industry that sort of defines them is failing at large.
Accenture signals more pain for the IT industry with disappointing forecast. Yeah, turns out a lot of IT complexity is going away because a lot of IT stuff is being automated. But also, you just don't need as many people to do what you had needed a lot of people to do in the past.
And people aren't in offices. And I thought this one was interesting because we've covered these in the past, these vertical farms. They wanted to revolutionize farming and take advantage of these vertical spaces. Hey, maybe a San Francisco high-rise, right? But it turns out that maybe most of that was just venture capital and free interest rates, which are no longer real.
Lessons from vertical farming, bankruptcies, layoffs, and closures in 2023. So the promise of, I don't know what vertical farming, but it's not just vertical farming, it's just urbanized farming, warehouse farming, is that you don't really have to do any pest control or soil management or anything like that. You can just grow your lettuce and grow your other stuff in a warehouse. And because you don't have to do all of that, you can recapture all of the water. There's a lot of really amazing things you can do. The problem is that we're not set up to do that. The technology's in its infancy, and it turns out it's cheaper to just grow it outside.
I suspect too, at least there was something like this here. And I think that they were hoping that pot would be legalized.
Yeah.
And now that that has still not materialized, they can't shift to a more valuable crop.
What we've learned is because they tax it so heavily, nobody's buying legal pot.
No.
Because it's literally a weed and you can just do it at home without the taxes. Maybe if we could convince people to grow their lettuce at home without taxes.
Lettuce actually is very easy to start from seed. Like that's a very easy, like just throw it in a box, it'll come up.
Lettuce grown at home is not very tasty compared to, like, it's not
It depends on the variety.
but I mean, just compared to what you buy at the store. But that is not true of tomato.
Oh yeah, tomatoes
Oh,
are
wait a
way
minute. What's the
better.
difference with the lettuce? Lettuce doesn't taste like anything.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. It's like lettuce tastes the same whether you grow it yourself or buy it at the
Oh,
store.
you're saying
Yeah.
there's no improvement. Okay.
But
You
with
can get some like more interesting varieties, but yeah, I mean, it's lettuce at the end of the day.
the local guy that's got the fruit stand that's like over where all the restaurants and stuff are, the tomatoes from there are on a whole other level. I could not taste that before.
My husband, like he doesn't really do a whole lot with the garden, but that's one thing he looks forward to every year is me growing tomatoes because he says they're that much better.
They are. I had no idea.
Well, I get my tomatoes like every other red-blooded American from Amazon. No, that's a lie. I don't do that. But you could if you wanted to, thanks to these men who are men and women who are Amazon drivers. Oh, wait, no, that's not what they are.
Amazon drivers are actually just drivers delivering for Amazon, Amazon says. Here's how you shoot that down. Can your Amazon driver also do an Uber Eats order at the same time? Because the answer is no.
Will you be mad if they set their own hours? Yes, then no. They're an employee, not a contractor.
Let me simplify it even further. Let me take it down like a million notches. Are they allowed to stop to pee? And if no, who made that decision?
That's 50 demerits.
You need to go see the Amazon Care Center.
So Vice wrote an article and they titled it something. Oh, the title was Amazon, or the headline, Amazon delivery drivers walk out in first ever strike. They were emailed a terse email from Amazon letting them know that those are not Amazon drivers. So drivers delivering for Amazon.
I saw a thing
Good
on
luck with the IRS on that.
I saw a thing on Reddit anti-work, because Reddit's going to shut down soon. And it was, it's like I'm a nurse and my shift is over. And I was greeted by this in our payroll thing. And it was like, please explain why you didn't take lunch. And there were only two buttons, manager requested or voluntary. And it's like, well, I had a patient that was dying, so I didn't get lunch today. So I guess I'm going to put manager requested.
Yeah, that level of tracking and management is going to be everybody's life.
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
All right,
Welcome to our dark
when are we
future.
building that compound? When are we getting out of here? We'll just grow tomatoes and sell them on the side of the road.
We were playing so much Ready or Not. I had a dream that we built a data center like that, and it was like, oh, this is actually pretty good. And we were just living off that.
Until someone
Were they
gasses the
terrorists?
center of it.
There were
Yeah.
no terrorists. We were just renting space in the data center, and it was like, this is pretty good.
Well, I worry about old age because we're going to get old as all this comes to a peak, and then you're going to be at a vulnerable time. But I'm feeling better about my skills still being useful in those older days.
U.S. reading and math scores dropped to the lowest level in decades. Chris, does this artwork evoke a Don't Starve?
It does, yeah. It kind of has that look with the claws. It reminds me of the shadow creatures
Yeah.
coming out from the campfire.
Do physical report cards still exist? Probably
Yes.
all digital, right?
Well, they have still have, I thought you were asking if they just had report cards. Yes.
No,
they-
but I mean, like, do you have a thing that they hand out?
I think with younger kids, they have the parents can access it directly because that way the kids
Right.
can't hide it.
Yeah, exactly. Unless your kid's really good at technology.
They go through and firebug it and change all the grades. Here, mom, look at my report card.
So it's a scale of 500 points. They dropped 6 to 8 for high performing students and 12 to 14 for low performing students. So it's not catastrophic numbers, but I don't think we could spare that 14.
No.
Our kids were already pretty dumb.
That's weird because I would think, at the very least, if you have a kid who's on a tablet or online all the time, terminally online, if you will, they would be reading a lot more.
Yeah, but you know what doesn't appear in the grammar test? Bussy.
Boosie's. Go to Boosie's gas station.
That was it Bussy? I thought it was Bussy.
I think it's Bussy, but I'm making a joke about Bucky's.
And here's an argument that we just keep seeing more and more of. And I'm thinking that because we keep seeing more and more of this, that a little bit of money might be going to Ars Technica.
Yeah.
Because why else would you run this article so many times?
ISPs say that U.S. should force big tech firms to pay for broadband construction. U.S. telcos pitch shared obligations for tech firms to fund network buildouts. Okay, so a nuclear power plant should pay your local power company to take power from them? The ISP's customers are creating the demand. The ISP is selling access. That is what the this is so, it's offensive.
And yet we keep seeing it.
Yeah.
And people are actually giving it the time of day.
Or the water company. The water company has to source their water from, Lake Huron. And so Lake Huron should pay the water company to take the water because they have so much of it.
Well, you know who's going to need a lot of that water is Intel.
Yeah.
Because once again, they are expanding.
Intel restructures manufacturing business. So this is a big fancy article to say that Intel announced that their new fab is going to have $20 billion of business even before it's built. Okay.
And they're breaking off the foundry portion, right?
That's what they announced a long time ago, but now they're giving some financial insights to that.
And we learned that I've already forgotten the
Germany.
Germany, all right. Germany got 30 billion, and now they got almost another 30 billion to throw around elsewhere.
Israel, Intel to invest $25 billion in Israel factory in record deal, Netanyahu says. Oh, we haven't covered the German story yet. We get $33 billion
we
in
did.
Germany.
We did.
we?
I put
We did it in the
government
wrong section.
Oh,
Yeah.
right. Okay.
Last episode.
Intel, the biggest private employer in Israel before this.
Yeah, the Israeli team was responsible for the core architecture, which saved the dumpster fire / train wreck of the Nehalem, or the pre-Nehalem, like Prescott P4. Remember NetBurst? NetBurst was very bad, and P4 was like, yeah, we got all the clocks, and then the Israel team was like, Core Duo, Core Solo, Core Duo, and then that sort of saved the company, more or less.
Well, I don't think this one is going to save the company. This was literally just for the press release.
Intel to start shipping a quantum processor. It's a 12-qubit device. Having been to IBM to see their 433-qubit device last year, I'm surprised that this division of Intel was not cut, and the Optane division was.
I like the sub headline here: Intel being Intel.
It's like 4 or 5 universities are going to get one, but you cannot buy one. So don't get hyped if you want your own quantum processor for.
Still salty they cut Optane.
And Google, they got a big shot in the arm for the Chromebooks when all the home education stuff kicked in. I guess they're losing that now, and they've decided that the Chromebooks might be just a bit too crappy. It's time to have a better one.
Google may be readying new Chromebook X branding for more premium ChromeOS laptops. Subheading, still going to ship with 2 gigabytes of local storage because...
You just store everything on the cloud.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah. Their assumption is that your local 5G network is going to get you connected up at gigabits. So why would you need local storage? They've obviously never experienced life anywhere outside of the valley.
This is probably just going to be a requirement that if you build these and brand them with the X, they have to have a minimum amount of processing power and RAM. That's what the X is going to mean. And if you think it's kind of terrifying, if you watched Tuesday's episode and you said, God, how can I avoid cell towers? They're everywhere. There is no way to get away from the Stingray tracking. Well, it's going to get worse.
An AT&T-backed cellular satellite company sent a 4G LTE signal from space. Now, at first, I thought this was going to be the smaller satellites, but no, this is apparently the size of like 3 cars. So this is an enormous satellite.
it was a very American unit of measurement.
3
3 football fields.
The picture makes it looks like it unfolds. So, like, does it start out as 3 cars big and then it unfolds into this enormous thing? Or
Yeah,
is
that's
it...
when they have the solar panels, they unpack. Also, it's going to be tethered to like a mommy satellite, which Daisy changed them and gives the power to all of them. So that actually might be the mother satellite.
They're able to achieve 10 megabit. These are also very low Earth orbit satellites. So this only works if you have an enormous constellation of satellites like what we have with Starlink.
So we're not going to be able to see the stars, is what you're telling me.
Yeah, no. We got Starlink up there. We're going to have the Virgin Galactic people. Are they still doing theirs? And this. So that's, 6,000 satellites each minimum.
Bad time to be an astronomer.
Or no, 6,000 satellites total minimum. 2,000 satellites each.
And the last week we saw the Microsoft repair program was expanding. It seems like the right to repair threats are moving the companies somewhat. It's taken a while, but they're doing it.
Apple is expanding self-service repair program to iPhone 14 lineup and more Macs. This is the thing where opens up weirdly and is strange.
It is indeed strange. But you can get in there and look at the strangeness. And I've been waiting for this. I'm maybe not for much longer a Xbox Game Pass, well, Microsoft Game Pass. I don't play the Xbox, I play the PC ones, but subscriber. And the price, the value is still pretty good, but you got to think like eventually they're going to ruin that, right?
Yes.
Now they've got me because in September I'm going to get Starfield for free. That's going to be like $80, right? So I got to think like between now and then I'm not going to spend $80. Well, they're going to raise it.
Microsoft is hiking the price of Xbox Series X and Xbox Game Pass.
How much they raise it?
$1.
Now, Series X, they actually emailed me to say, hey, we're going to raise the price, but you can buy it at the current price for the next month or so. So I got an email saying, you know.
What marketing list are you on that you're getting that email?
I don't know.
Unsubscribe.
Yeah, they didn't give the U.S. price, though. They gave 479 pounds, 549 euro, 649 Canadian dollars, and 800 Australian dollars. Yikes. Australia really gets the short end of that technology stick, doesn't it? But perhaps in response to that, although I think this is more related to the Activision deal and a little bit of woe is me, but they're saying that they've lost.
We've lost the console wars. It says $1 trillion Underdog Xbox.
This picture is just beautiful.
We really need to spend $69 billion to acquire Activision because we just can't compete.
But they're not just losing it in America. Why does it got to be the American flag?
This reminds me of like when I took a Photoshop class in high school. This is like the kind of stuff we had to learn from our textbook.
Also, like if you just step back and think about this from just a purely capitalistic standpoint, if you're a game company and you're developing stuff for Xbox and PlayStation 5 and whatever, you generally tend to want your game as far and wide as you can get it. But this is Microsoft, the people that make the console, saying that we need to buy everybody that makes games and control that in order to sell our thing because it's not very good at playing games on its own. You have to endure the suffering of using our hardware platform if you want to play this game, not our platform plays this game the best.
Also, I think it's been pretty much objectively proven that PlayStation has the better hardware right now. So your game has to suck a little bit more in order to make them happy. And if you're looking for an ostentatious laptop to take with you on that long trip so everybody else can see just how rich and powerful you are, this one's it.
Lenovo Yoga Book 9i dual screen OLED laptop is now available for $2,000 and up. It has two 2880 by 1800 LCD displays that you can use in a stack or a side-by-side configuration. I love it. It looks amazing.
The book one is kind of cool, that format.
Well, see, that is the only format because that's a Bluetooth keyboard that's not connected to it.
Oh, okay.
So you can actually use it like with art. You can have dual screen like that.
It looks amazing.
In the clamshell. You can also fold it back like that.
I don't know if it's $2,000 amazing because it doesn't have a DGPU, but
I don't think that's the same laptop. Or
It
is that
is.
just? It's stacked on top of it, right?
yeah.
That's gonna scratch it.
Yeah.
No, it's got it's the fuzz that's on the Surface. You know how you can use the back side of the Surface keyboard to clean your screen? It's like that.
See, I like the book format the best. I couldn't imagine like if I was illustrating something, two screens like that wouldn't be super useful to me, but if you're reading something, it'd be cool to have it actually be able to hold it like a book.
It's interesting.
Yeah, not $2,000.
I like that better than a foldable screen, if I'm being honest. 'Cause
Yeah.
I don't see the durability in a foldable screen yet, and I'm certainly productive with dual side-by-side screens. So.
But foldable screen always treats it as one screen.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
See, I like having because Windows is going to recognize that's two different monitors.
Yeah.
And that's the advantage. And Elon Musk, he might lose a fight in a year or so from now, and he might be losing a little bit on Twitter, but he is winning when it comes to the chargers.
Rivian is the next automaker to adopt Tesla's charging plugs. Yay! Rivian, everybody I know, I only know like 4 people that actually own a Rivian, and they all love it. And one of them is an ex-Tesla owner. Which doesn't tell you anything.
Why would you speak to those people? And Modi from India. Now, we've done a lot of India government stories talking about how Modi is basically an authoritarian monster. He was responsible for that whole biometric database. and trying to get everybody locked down. He's working on that digital currency.
The biometric database that was less secure than the cow database.
He's turned off the internet several times just to deal with something that annoyed him, which is weird because when he came to visit us, everybody was like, oh, he's the greatest guy ever.
Musk is planning Tesla and Starlink India debut after meeting with PM Modi. So the meeting was basically, hey, you'll turn this off when I tell you, right? Yes, absolutely, sir. Can we please sell to your billions of people?
Mr. Free Speech Absolutist. Didn't quite do it. He does have a lovely skirt here, though.
Listen, this is a requirement of doing business in that country. We're always going to comply with the laws of the country. And then some.
Accidental preview. I didn't collect all the articles for this. I think
This was a big story all week. Everyone was talking about
there's
it.
a couple of nonsense articles maybe here, but I think we all know the story because, my God, how could you escape it?
Yeah.
It was just everywhere. But this is a hardware-related thing to talk about when we come to this story.
The Ars Technica headline is Submarine missing. I'll update that for you. Crushed near the Titanic. Used a $30 Logitech gamepad for steering. I mean, this is fine. You know, U.S. submarines use an Xbox controller for controlling their periscope. This is fine.
But I think they're wired.
Well, I mean,
Yeah, I heard people refer to this as the little brother controller. Like this is the one you hand your
Mad
younger
Cats.
relative. Yeah.
this doesn't have anything to do with the reason that the sub was crushed and failed catastrophically.
But
But
it
it-
probably didn't help.
It might be representative of the corners that were cut.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's that out. Yeah,
It's a symptom of the greater disease.
yeah. And how many miles are on this sub? There is such a thing as like, oh, you know, it's like you made it down and back successfully one time. How many times do you want to attempt fate in that thing?
Yeah, I think he did it 3 or 4 times. He's like, oh, it's fine, but it was cracking a little bit each time.
Yeah, we don't know.
I mean, you can't say that he didn't have faith in it because he was there.
It's also very strange. As a result of this, I now know that Gabe Newell has a
Yeah.
submarine that can go this deep, and that James Cameron has spent more time down there than the captain of the ship, the captain of the Titanic.
See, that's the way you should do it. You shouldn't be flaunting your wealth. If you have as much money as Gabe Newell, you should just enjoy it and not
Yeah.
Yeah.
press release everything.
Well, I don't think. I mean, he probably does use it for joyrides too, maybe. But like, I think he also like funds deep sea exploration, so it's not just like him doing it for fun, from what I understood.
Now, one interesting thing that came from the sub story is that Snopes did a fact check. Now, they are the final word in what's true and what's not. And they confirmed that the submarine used Starlink technology and it was failing. Now, what was quickly pointed out by the Twitter annotations was that Starlink bandwidth cannot penetrate water more than a few centimeters. So it would be insane to put Starlink on a submarine. It could never work. And then they said contested. And then Elon Musk himself weighed in. Yeah, Starlink's on the boat, not on the submarine. And then it was false. So Snopes fact checked themselves twice. And they were wrong 2 times.
Starlink did tweet about it the week before, and they're like, "We're so proud to be part of a deep sea exploration thing like this." And it was like, "Ooh,
But they're on the boat.
yeah, they're on the boat." Yeah,
Right. So we've learned that we cannot use that kind of communication, and it's actually quite difficult to communicate with the sub, which makes this very timely.
Scientists conduct first tests of a wireless cosmic ray navigation system. So this article talks about how muons have been used to find hidden chambers at the pyramids of Giza and locate the dial home device for the Stargate and a whole bunch of other really interesting things that,
one of these is not like the other.
that have, some really interesting stuff. So it says, hey, if we get data on just the background radiation of muons, we can use that as a cosmic global positioning system.
And they've tested it, and it's not anything that they could use right now,
But maybe in the future.
but we could have underwater GPS someday with this.
It doesn't require satellites, although they are using muon emitters for the aforementioned archaeological expeditions.
But they don't have to be in space.
Yeah.
You just have ground bases for that.
Neat.
Nice. And it's nice to see that next year we might finally get our first foray into the flying car.
Suzuki and SkyDrive jointly start producing flying cars in 2024. Those are definitely going to maim some children.
I'm really looking forward to DUI offenders being able to land in my living room.
It's never safe, no matter where you are.
Really.
Someone could.
I hope we create sky lanes that are not over housing. Although if you put them over the existing roads, that's also very dangerous.
Yeah.
Because they're going to fall into that.
I had a professor who was like obsessed with this, and he tried to consider like what traffic rules he would implement, and like had written out ideas for how he would handle it. I should send him this story.
Suzuki is going to come up with these, and the Paris Air Show, apparently they're going to have 2 of these ready to show off.
I wonder if we could implement. It would be fun to get one of the larger drones that could carry, a large pizza, and then set up a route between our houses and see if we could perfect the software that makes sure that the pizza never experiences more than 0.2 Gs, just to see how fast we could deliver a pizza between our houses.
The gimbal would weigh more than the pizza. So,
I mean, it would make a hell of a YouTube video.
well, you might not want to be making YouTube videos in Texas right now because any extra processing power should be conserved.
Texas grid operator urges power conservation during heat wave.
It's been very hot in Texas and strangely cool here in Kentucky.
Once again, when the price of electricity is determined by market rates, there's not really much of a market incentive to build out more infrastructure.
And I think the numbers were like on Wednesday, it was $34 per megawatt hour. And then on Thursday, it was $2,000 per megawatt hour.
I could literally not live there. Electricity is too much. I waste so much electricity.
Maybe it's time for solar to become more of a thing. If you're in Texas.
Well, you got to fix the business model, right? Like, or
I'm saying like if you can afford it and you live in Texas.
Oh, like personal
do
solar?
personal solar, yeah.
You'd have to have a lot. And pour one out if you're drinking right now, because we have an F in the chat, a dead technology.
It's official. LCD TVs won't see any further development. OLED and micro LED are the future. Yes. I love OLED. I just wish it didn't wear out so fast.
I think we can live without it.
Without LCDs?
It did a good job.
Yeah.
It's time to move on.
Yeah. Micro LED, quantum dot. I don't know. Those technologies haven't reached parity yet, but that's how it was with CRTs at the beginning. Remember when LCDs launched, and if you had a good quality CRT, it's like, oh, my good quality CRT is way better than LCDs. It took 5 years for the quality to get there. It's not quite like that. We're probably like a year away.
Yeah. Things move a little quicker now.
Yeah.
But not if people stop buying TVs.
Yeah.
Well, Apple has perhaps gone further than they ever have before with trademark and copyright. And this one is just jaw-dropping. And if this happens, I think this is going to be a harbinger of the beginning of the end, right? I mean, come on.
Apple is taking on Apple in this trademark battle. They want the rights to this picture of an apple.
So was it Swiss farmers?
Yeah.
Swiss apple farmers. They have a picture of an apple with a little cross on it for Switzerland. And they're like, yeah, we make apples and this is our country's flag. So
Apple is drunk with power.
Who could confuse that? Well, Apple doesn't like it. They think they should control. And their apple doesn't have a bite out of it, like the Apple logo.
Yeah, it's just
It's a
an
whole apple.
Yeah, inside of a Swiss flag.
But no, Apple is actually trying to get control of all pictures of apples.
I think this will get struck down.
If the government if there's any lack of corruption in that government.
Yeah, a few years ago, and I'm sorry for people who try not to learn about the Kardashians. I'm about to force some knowledge on you. I think it was Kim Kardashian tried to copyright the term kimono for her fashion line. and that got struck down really quick because they're like, you can't take someone else's culture and say that you're the only person who makes kimonos.
That's literal cultural appropriation.
Yeah, it's very literal. Yeah. So I can see where they'd look at this and be like, you're not in the same industry. It's a totally different country. Like, no.
Yeah, but the level of hubris required to do, I mean, we've learned, when you read about like Standard Oil and U.S. Steel, it's like, oh, it's the first $1 billion, $1 billion company. Apple was the first $1 trillion company. We have learned nothing from U.S. It's the same exact story all over again, just with more steps.
Well, they've learned.
They've learned
how to do it.
Yeah.
And Discord, as we mentioned before, they're becoming insanely popular, but they don't have the best monetization. I've never been moved to pay anything for Discord. Why would I? And they hate that. So they're coming up with new ways.
Discord is opening the monetization floodgates. Get ready for microtransactions, stores, and paid exclusive memes. Now remember, I just want you to recall, this same sort of thing played out with Reddit a couple of years ago. And now look where Reddit is.
That's well, this is the only time I've ever considered getting Discord Nitros when they added that soundboard feature.
Yeah.
And I have a bunch of like funny sounds from another server I'm in, and I was like, oh, I really want those on Team PGP, and I just haven't.
So now's the time
Not
to
gonna pay for
dot
it,
some I's and cross some T's on the open source Mattermost platform, which is kind of like Discord except open source mostly.
You know what's funny about the Reddit thing is people would post like, you know, the nudes or the John Oliver or whatever. And some people would give that the awards. That's like, oh,
Yeah, what's the point?
you're giving them money.
This is exactly what this is designed to prevent, and you just gave them money.
And that's why Discord will succeed here.
Yeah.
Because people like you.
Oh yeah, I alluded to this earlier.
Right. We talked about the EU cloud issues with, and this is again, like, do you put it in government because it's a FTC thing, or do you put it in business because Google initiated it? I chose business for this one.
Google files an FTC cloud protest against Microsoft. This is using the link that we covered in the government section, but Google also made it public. They said this isn't fair because Microsoft is bundling their Azure stuff, which Google considers inferior, with their Office 365 stuff. And there is merit to what Google is complaining about. They're not wrong. A lot of the people that are running stuff in the cloud don't really care if it's an Amazon or Google or Office or Azure. But people really need their Office. And so if they can get a deal on Office by using Azure for their cloud, heck yeah, they're going to do it.
It's kind of the same thing that Microsoft's been doing since their inception.
Yeah.
Google's not wrong. They're just an asshole.
Yeah. But also Google really needs to get its head out of its butt because their GCP is kind of trash.
Well, everything's turning into trash. And when things turn into trash and the economy takes a nosedive, what you do is you separate your profitable parts of your company from your non-profitable parts, and you do some magic business accounting.
EA Sports and EA Games are splitting apart in internal shakeup.
So EA Sports has, I think they have FIFA, right?
That's kind of their big thing, I think.
And they have like an NBA and NFL game, I think.
You think they're
Do
looking
they
at
make
it?
Madden? Is that them?
It's like we release a new
Maybe.
$60 game every year with minimal changes, and it makes so much money. Do you have any idea how much money we spend on Battlefield? Battlefield costs so much.
F1, PGA Tour, Super Mega Baseball.
Oh,
All of that will be separated away from DICE and Battlefield and those types of things. This gal will be taking over.
probably set up to fail, right?
You got a big job coming. And, I've been reading a lot about how the younger people with no concept of how to do anything, because all of a sudden they've just like been living at home and working from home. And when they emerge out into the sun, everything's confusing to them and scary. And so Apple is looking to monetize that.
Apple iOS 17 will let you decode your car's dashboard symbols and warning lights.
Shouldn't you just Google it? That's what I've done whenever I've had a weird thing
The
show
car
up.
also comes with a manual.
Yeah.
I read when I was reading this, I had a dark future where you had to hold up your iPad and look at the world through your iPad because you were too stupid to understand anything that was happening around you.
Well, sometimes people do, though, like with the manual thing. If you buy a used car, it doesn't always have a manual with it.
They have them online though. They have to.
Yeah.
It's part of that.
I would just say Google it. But
Someone is holding up their iPad to discover what the save icon means. It's a picture of a floppy disk.
Or a printer.
or
What's that?
people are like, "What's that? You mean a hashtag, right?" And it's like, no, it's a pound sign.
This machine puts words on paper?
I remember the first time I saw a commercial put the pound sign on something because it was for Twitter, and I was like, they have an IRC channel? That seems unlikely.
And yet now Discord's a thing.
Ugh.
Oh, we're gonna start seeing that. I wonder if we'll see that in advertisements. You know, how, like usually they put a website at the end. Will people start putting like Discord / whatever?
It seems like every project has one now.
Yeah.
Listen, all you neckbeards out there that were like IRC, blah, blah, blah. Because you didn't implement GIFs in IRC is why we got Slack and Discord. It's your fault.
Well,
Discord's been solid up until now, where they're trying to monetize it aggressively.
When it comes to destroying the old thing and creating something new, Spotify certainly did that, huh? They really upturned that whole industry, and they're looking to do so further.
New rumored Spotify premium plan might offer hi-fi and free audiobook access.
Cool story. Still not going to use it.
If they'll make it less than $15, I'll upgrade.
Really?
Free audiobooks plus the lossless audio music, yeah, for sure. Although engagement challenge, I've heard that the Realtek decoder can't actually usually transmit the difference between 320 MP3 and lossless.
I'm not
Yeah, I think there's a lot of even your standard issue home theater. It's like, oh, this is using the Dolby whatever codec, blah blah blah, and it's like, okay, that's in there, but then you take it apart and you look at the actual like digital the analog decode path, and it's like this thing is never going to have more than like 10-bit resolution on the output. Like this IC is not designed for more than 10-bit. That's a lie. Yeah, it's pretty common.
Now we have to get a Spotify branded motherboard. And the war on crypto has taken a little bit of a pause because it turns out that a bunch of central banks actually raised rates. We didn't, but around the world, a lot of banks did, and the crypto got a big boost from that. But I think the war will continue because the idea is to destroy what has already been built in the crypto space and replace it with what already exists.
MasterCard submits a fresh trademark application for crypto tech. Yes, that MasterCard.
This is a very cool, like, Lisa Frank image. Like, I would have put that on a binder.
They should have just
When I was a
thrown the metal Barbie in there.
Yeah, she should just be in the background behind the Lisa Frank illustration.
So one of the big things they're working on here is like, yeah, they're going to use the blockchain, but they're going to put their own MasterCard thing on top of it, which means that you will have to have your known identity. So all the things that are attractive about cryptocurrency, they're going to strip away.
Did you guys get that anxiety when you heard that sound just now? Do-do-do-do.
Maybe it's filtered out.
And Google, which is actually paring down their corporate offices and so forth, are, I guess, switching from the office format to the company town format.
Ugh.
Google gets go-ahead to build its 153-acre Bay Area neighborhood headquarters. I think the only reason they got this go-ahead is to try to stop the blight. No, notice the legend there. It says pink. It means that this is currently used for something else. It's basically nothing.
This was going to be 20% low-income housing because, they're getting criticism about destroying all housing in the area. But with the economic downturn, they managed to whittle that down to 15.
Oh, and by the time this is actually built, it'll be down to 0.
I actually think this is a net positive thing for that area. Like, this is the kind of thing that actually probably would help stem the tide of some of the blight.
You think that worked in Eastern Kentucky with company towns?
I mean, it's kind of, but Google's never going to run out of coal. You know what they should do? They should do what Disney does, and they should have, like all the engineers in the houses, and then they'll build an underground facility for the janitors. And
they'll build an underground facility so that the engineers can safely get from work to their house, because otherwise they would get mugged or something
by the janitors.
I more than the company town, like the dark side of the company town moving out and the coal company moving out, I think there's more of a danger of it, becoming Mad Max style, like walled off area.
Yeah, and then what happens, if AI replaces your job and then you're thrown out of the walled city that you've lived in your entire life?
A lot of new, interesting science fiction.
Yeah.
You got to keep your subscriptions current to make sure that you get to stay.
It's the things that my mom get. It's like, oh, this starving child in Africa, but it's gonna be like, if you don't keep your Google subscription, this engineer, we're gonna have to kick him out of the walled garden.
You know what's out there? Neither do I.
And Google has, they're doing some awful things, but they've always done awful things. They have a lot of sins, a lot of skeletons in their closet, and some of them are coming back to haunt them, but it's a very low effort haunt, as is usually the case with these kinds of things.
You're owed money from a class action Google lawsuit settlement, but you have to request it, and you're going to get about $8.
Well, it depends on how many people sign up, because I think almost every American qualifies for this.
Yeah.
All you had to do was use Google between a certain year. Between 2006 and 2013. It's like almost everybody in the country.
Any adult, yeah.
And it's only going to be $23 million. So it'll be however many people sign up, 23 million divided by that number.
Not even worth it to try to find the link to sign up for it.
Nope.
And to give them your data, which they'll immediately
They've already
sell.
lost. Yeah.
And Google also has, they are authors of this lawsuit because they have figured out that some people have gamed their system for a long time.
New Google lawsuit aims to curb fake business reviews. This is literally 10 years too late.
So this is a hilarious, I can't imagine how you came up with this idea. What this guy would do is he would set up a little like video area in his garage, and he would put in the background the implements of whatever business he was doing. So if it was a garage, he'd put like, a toolkit or a toolbox back there, maybe a compressor. And then he would do video conferences and be like, yeah, I'm going to get my new business set up on Google. And he would create completely fake businesses, bakeries, mechanics, what have you. Then whenever people would contact those businesses, he would sell that data to actual businesses. And he made a decent amount of money doing that. But it was just all fake stuff, fake garbage on Google.
And meanwhile, I have clients who are like, hey, can you make a Google listing for me? And it is like pulling teeth to get their businesses verified.
Honestly, that sounds like SEO spam with more steps.
Yeah.
I mean, he worked hard at it.
Turns out that's all you have to do to get ranked and listed on Google is work hard and actually do things.
And do video calls with them and know how to do all the paperwork. It's probably harder now. We have, privacy obviously is a big consideration. And if you watch this show regularly, I hope that you are terrified because I am. And
it's nervous all the time.
It's nice to have a new tool anytime you can get it.
DuckDuckGo browser beta for Windows bakes in a lot of privacy tools. No extensions yet, but it can fight spam tracking and YouTube's algorithm. The Ars Technica YouTube algorithm hint is what was the one that the open source thing?
Invidious.
Yeah, there's a nod for that there in this. So
well, it does the same thing, which is interesting because Google sued Invidious, but I don't know if they'll go after DuckDuckGo for it. Basically, if you play a YouTube, any YouTube video you play won't have ads and won't affect your Google recommendations as if you're not watching it.
Watch this space for incoming cease and desist.
Yeah.
They're blocking all the tracking cookies and the third-party stuff. This is funny. The fire button instantly closes all tabs and clears website data. I think that's for a very specific use case, right?
Can I bind that to a hotkey? Turns out you can, yes.
So that's a fun thing. Some features aren't all the way there yet, but go check it out. I don't know if it does a lot more than Brave does. And the Sony Microsoft Activision thing, of course, threatens them, and they are taking the social media route here, which is either you play with us or we cut you out.
Sony is prepared to cut Activision Blizzard from PlayStation 6 plans. So that doesn't mean that they're going to cut them out. It means that Sony's not going to share any advanced information of what their plan is for the new console.
Well, they won't give them development consoles,
right,
which effectively cuts them out. But they're so afraid that Activision might get their secrets and then get acquired by Microsoft, they might not let them develop for the console.
Microsoft already knows.
And it's hard to get excited about fonts for me. I imagine, Christy, you get a little bit more excited about them.
I'm not a typographer or not someone who makes type. But
do you have a favorite monospace font?
Not really. I usually just use Courier. Yeah. Courier New, if you want better W's.
Well, apparently, if you have vision problems, then there's a lot of ways that you can, like the W, for example, and the M, various slashes and so forth. You can really hype that up. So we got this new one that people like, but it has one flaw.
Intel's new font for low vision developers is causing design drama for coders.
I don't think this is a flaw. I think this is one person who complained about it. Some people don't like the curly bracket. I thought the curly bracket was fine. There's not a picture of it here.
I don't have an example.
There's a picture and there's a Reddit thread linked that has a picture that has the curly bracket in it.
I thought it was more readable, especially at smaller font sizes. And it's like, oh, this is a nice font.
Here's a pro tip: is just make your font huge, and then you don't have to worry about it. My husband will come over sometimes, like while we're working, and he'll look at something I'm working on. He's like, "How do you work with this big?" And I'm like, "It's how I see it."
With a lot of code these days is they're building more and more shorthand into it. And sometimes you'll have a curly brace, a parentheses,
Yeah.
and a bracket in all together. And it does get a little weird.
Yeah.
Although Visual Studio Code actively changes the colors of those based on their matches, which is amazing. Great feature.
But that's why I think this curly bracket's good, is because it's very clear it's a curly bracket. So I don't know why someone would complain about that.
And people complain about everything. In fact, do you have any complaints? Have you tried out the new Steam? I know that you have, because I've played Steam games with you in the meantime.
Valve gives Steam its biggest update and redesign in years. I think it's fine. It's literally like, this should really be a testament to the original UI designer, is that they changed very little in most of the UI. The only thing that's really dramatically different is the notifications. You get a little bit more detail for that. And then when you do your overlay, you have like a little icon tray at the bottom, and you can pick what you want to come up in the overlay, which I think is kind of a nice feature.
You know, one thing they got rid of, though, and I'm not sure why they would do this, it used to use the taskbar icon to show you the progress of a download. It doesn't do that anymore.
Yeah, it should do that. But yeah, I think it's fine. They also added a note feature. So if you're someone who, wants to keep track of what you're doing in a game, you can make a note right in Steam.
That'll be really useful for RPGs from 1995.
What rock am I looking for to find this quest?
That kind of thing is making a comeback. Can you imagine playing like an ultra realistic first-person shooter, and you bring up the thing to make a note of how many bullets you've used, because you don't have
Keep track.
any automatic inventory management.
Well, we learned, moving on to a little bit of security, we learned that Microsoft earlier this month had some outages, but they were a little bit quiet on exactly what caused it. Now we know why.
Microsoft says early June disruptions to Outlook and the cloud platform were cyber attacks.
A DDoS. And they haven't given us a lot of information, but it seems like they had one point of failure somewhere, and someone figured that out and hit it hard and took down the whole thing.
Oof.
I think they're blaming the Russians here.
They just have like a ticker where it's like Russia, China, and then it
We got
goes
a
back and forth.
dartboard.
Yeah. Okay, it's them. It's them this time.
And if you are using some of these spider-like commercial routers, you have a very serious update that you need to make right now.
Asus urges customers to patch their critical router vulnerabilities. We warned you about this a couple weeks ago, and oh boy, things have only gotten much, much darker. Might also direct you to the Level 099 text series that we're working on for this.
They say if you are not going to update this, like right now, turn off the WAN because it's that bad.
You know what happened with the Barracuda email appliances, where they're just like, I get some new ones? I have a feeling that this is going to have been so bad that they're just going to say, you need to get some new ones, because it's going to be really hard to properly disinfect these at this point.
And if you enjoy watching the sports...
yes, as we do at this table.
And as you're watching the sports, if you like to criticize the players of that sport, this is a bad time for you.
AI used a World Cup to identify 300 making abusive online posts. So they tracked you down and they knew. And then when you showed up at the stadium, they said,
They should also use the AI to track people who say, I'm so glad our boys are doing good.
Who was it that showed up at the concert? It was a lawyer for somebody that had sued the stadium or something.
Oh,
Yeah.
That was also a dark story.
I think they should expand it to anybody who uses the word "we" to reference the team.
Yeah.
Unless they work in the stadium.
Our boys.
You're not on the team.
Huh.
It's kind of terrifying, though, the level of surveillance that we're getting. But, boy, YouTube comments have taught me one thing, which is like, I never talk crap on the internet because I don't want people to see me the way I see you. And Windows had a little bit of an update issue. Boy, that's a headline that comes around a lot, isn't it?
Windows 11 KB 5027231 also breaks Chrome for Cisco.
You don't have to read the entire version.
WatchGuard EDR users. So basically, there was a Windows update that broke Chrome and WatchGuard EDR.
The naming conventions sometimes in tech, or for any products, really.
More importantly, when they tried to roll it back, they got a catastrophic error in their Windows event log. So you can't escape it once you've got it. Not a good look. And this was was this Move It? I can't remember.
Yeah.
Yeah,
correct.
another Move It victim, and this time it's us.
Millions of Americans' personal data exposed in global hack. So turns out MoveIt systems were completely compromised and they lost all of the information.
Oops.
Not us specifically. It was 2 states, like Louisiana and what was it? Massachusetts, and I think Louisiana. But it was everybody in the state who has a driver's license.
Wow.
So tough. That's a tough hack. And UPS had a little bit of a data leak on their tracking site.
SMS phishers harvested phone numbers and shipment data from UPS tracking tool. So if you used your cell phone to track a package and it's like, hey, notify me when something happens with this package, then bad guys got that. But then they also used that information to send you phishing messages to try to get more information out of you.
They're asking for $1.55.
What an odd number.
Well, so they get your credit card.
Working on volume. Oh, I see. They're going to charge you whatever they want.
Yeah.
So yeah, one guy said that he, in his mind, when they warned him about this, he was like, oh, they'll get it and then they'll use it later. But no, he shipped something and like 30 minutes later, he got the text.
Wow.
So they were doing it in real time.
That's fantastic because UPS has an API that the criminals can use. And it's like, notify me when something shows up from this address or this phone number. It's like, okay, here you go. It's like, thanks, API. The computers don't know they're working for criminals.
And they don't care.
Mm-hmm. Fun times.
That's it for today. We'll be back on Friday with Robot and Nonsense. We'll see you then. Bye.